You got it, girl. Be real.
Um, I guess I'll back up to how this rash came onto me. And it took many years of digging through things to see where this all started from, where it came from, how it became in my body, where those toxins were. But as an adult and going through lots of intensive help, it kind of narrowed down to when I was 12 years old. And up until then, I had a very, very awesome childhood. I was a very happy kid. I spent all my days outside. My favorite place was to be in a tree. I loved being in trees. And more than anything, I loved playing with my cats and my dogs. I loved being in the rain. I specifically remember a time when there was a thunderstorm, and I was enticed by it. I wanted to be in that thunderstorm. And I remember putting on a little ballerina tutu leotard, and I went outside and across the street in Miss Helen's yard. There was this driveway where they would always go over the edge and make a dip with their tire. And in that hole, it was full of water and mud. And I was so excited to just be in that puddle, in that mud, being rained on. It felt like heaven. It was just such a release, such a beautiful thing. And, as we get older, we have to become more adult-like. And in my introductory into adulthood, around 12 years old, we start going through some changes. Around that time, my family, my parents made a decision to better our family by moving across town. I was extremely resentful for this. I had no desire to move where we were going, and I very much held it against my family. I was ridden with pain and anger and resentment about it. And this year hit really hard for me. I went to my first public school, which I had a very hard time adapting to. That was a lot of social pressure on me that I had not experienced. I grew up being homeschooled for a long time at a point, and so it was different. My world switched. When we moved across town, it was also a whole demographic of people that I felt socially awkward in. We went from a highly populated Hispanic community to a predominantly richer side of town, and I felt disconnected. During that time, my father, worked his tail off his whole life for us, and experienced 3 heart attacks. And my life, as I knew it, really changed. The person that I loved the most, the person that I saw as superhero that fixed all my problems, that, made everything better. To me, I didn't understand that he could keep living after that. And at that point, I shut down. And along with that, I broke my arm, my dominant side, which took away a lot of my physical abilities. And the day after I broke my arm, I started my menstrual cycle. And all of this within a couple months. And I shut down, my heart turned off. I stopped loving. I stopped doing all the things as a child that once were what made me thrive and live. And I got lost for a while. I went to a very dark place. I did not allow love into my life. I began listening to very violent, demonic music. I began hanging around people that weren't doing anything good for their lives. I began using substances to give me a feeling of being alive or happy. I became very, very aggressive towards the people that loved me because I did not want to feel love if it was going to hurt that much. Through my own actions and through my own doings, I put my family in a very hard state. And at that point, it was better for me to be put somewhere else because I was affecting the whole family by my toxicity of. At this point, I did not have God in my life. I'd watched my dad serve God his whole life, and it was really hard for me to understand why this could all be happening and God be in the picture still. Mind you, my mind was very young, and I only had the experiences that I knew at that point. And I am thankful that God has walked through all of that with me, and I am so thankful that I'm here today to share the rest of this story. So, after that, because of all of that, I was moved to a lockdown correctional facility for troubled teenagers, and it was a boarding school. And my problems intensified greatly. I was shut off from the outside world. I did not go outside. I was not allowed to speak. I spent most of my time in a cubicle not moving. I became severely depressed. I gained 50 pounds in 3 months. I lost my will to live for a while. I got to the point where I was willing to risk my life in order to live because I had felt so dead in there. I made the decision to run away and to escape. And to this day, I'm the only one that I've ever known of to escape that place. And since I've left there, that place was shut down for abuse and neglect by the government. My punishment for escaping was to be locked in a closet for 7 days and restart the whole program again, losing all speaking privileges for an entire month and being basically, just not given a life that anybody would want to be in. But I knew my actions put me there, and it was walking without love, walking without God, and allowing fear and hatred to dwell in me. So, moving on from that, I did leave there one day. And when I left there, there was a lot of damage that had to be mended through. And it did not happen immediately. I decided that I was going to make up for all of that lost time. And I was going to take the freedom that I had once I got out of there and run wild. And I sure did. I made up for every bit of that time that was lost. It probably doubled. I found love in ways that were unhealthy. I stayed up to the wee hours of the night every single night. I would say my regular sleep cycle was about 4 hours a night. I struggled with eating. I decided to be a vegetarian for 11 years and never put protein in my body. I survived on cereal and ice cream. I would eat right before passing out. I would diminish 2 plates of giant food, not eating the whole day, and I would pass out. for those 4 hours, and I would wake up and do it all again. I would constantly be in the state of rage. I was always irritated. I was not a pleasant person to be around. But God has made the biggest difference in my life. Let's see here. One of the biggest things I had to get over through all of that was the feeling of being abandoned, and also the damage that was done from not being in nature, the lack of sun in my life, and the lack of the earth in my life, and the lack of nutrients in my life. And God has such a funny way of working with us, because as you can see, I was not taking care of myself. So God gave me 2 children. And I love other people, and I love taking care of other people, just as I did always my dog and my cat. I have a big heart. And through those children, God showed me everything that my family had done for me. And my son is a key clutch to why I have a relationship with my family today. He was the bridge that gapped that. I was able to have understanding as a parent, and to also, I needed their advice, their help. I was not enough at that point that I had to come out and be like, can you meet me where I'm at? I see you. And I started seeing how much trouble I had caused and the chaos I had been. And little by little, it was not instant. I still struggled with love. I still struggled with addiction. Although I could be good to the people around me, being good to myself was still very hard. With my children, it gave me a new purpose, a reason to live, something to fight for, something to wake up for. And the longer I hung out with them, the more they started to reflect me. And I was able to see the different sides of me that I wanted to refine and to change and to leave behind and to put into them. It has been a constant working cycle, and I will even say, if it wasn't for a change I made even 3 years ago, I would not be standing here right now. Having children brought love back into my life. It was almost as though somebody took the shockers and revived me. It woke something up in me that had been dead. So going back to that rash, that's kind of leading up to how does rash happen? Well, a lot of trauma, a lot of toxins because of the traumas. This then made itself physical in my body. I can remember exactly where I was when it came out. I was in Mulberry Mountain, Arkansas, on top of a mountain at a festival, and I was under the influence of multiple things. So all of my experiences were heightened, but my body broke out in blisters everywhere. I had boils the size of dimes and nickels coming out of the palms of my hands that felt like I had burning balls of fire that just continually burned. They were, I could not ignore them. I could not dismay them. The pain was constant. My own body was attacking itself. I had blisters that wrapped all around my torso. The skin was raised. It burned. It leaked ooze. everything that touched it would get wet and the ooze would stick to it, and I would peel it off and it would create wounds. It itched to high heavens as if it was like poison ivy on steroids, like chiggers. If you itched it, it would open all the blisters, and the burning and the pain would reignite. And it was just constant. There was no relief to it. I felt disgusting. My image of myself was like a org from the Lord of the Rings. I felt untouchable. And I experienced this through the visiting doctors when they would come see me and they would look at me. Their facial expressions. They would go get another doctor to come look at them with me as they just observed me and gawked at me in disgust and confusion. This resonated with a feeling that I had had at that boarding school. Not a single one of us were allowed to be touched. We had an 18-inch rule. And some of you might be able to relate with COVID how you felt with that 6-foot rule of never being touched. I had a year and a half of my life where I was never physically touched unless I was being restrained. And that made me feel untouchable. It made me feel unworthy, unwanted. And going through this just felt like I was very similar, but now I'm seeing it. And I was in shame. I covered myself. I wore pants and long sleeves. I did not speak to it. I never took any pictures of it. I hid it. At this point, I had no insurance, so everything I was doing was out of pocket. I spent thousands of dollars of my own money while I was working minimum wage, trying to raise 2 kids, really struggling, but at the same time wanting relief. I did biopsies, I did skin scrapings, I did the ooze collecting, did blood tests. I searched specialists, went to dermatologists. Everybody kept telling me this was something that I might go through for the rest of my life, that there was never going to be anything good out of it, that just you're going to have flare-ups. You just deal with it. Here's some steroids. Here's some steroid cream. They had me on steroids for 6 straight months. I was done. I was ready to surrender. If I was going to have to live with this, I could not do the steroids. I felt like a raging lunatic. I was inhabiting the Hulk. I was struggling to keep my job because I couldn't sleep. I was gaining weight out of control. I had the rage that was coming with it because of all the hormones imbalance. But I didn't give up. I did not believe that God put me here for this to be the life that I was living. I did not believe that my body would just turn on itself and try to harm it. It did not make sense to me. I had so many more questions. Why? How? Because, where is this coming from? How do I fix it? This is not working. I was furious. And it brought me back to my dad and to where I had a heart to fix him. I knew that's where the pain all started, was how to help him. I want to mend him. I want to make him well. And that's how I got on this journey today. There are several things that God has given us. And that's why I want to tell you, go outside. The sun is our friend. Barbara O'Neill says, the sun is the doctor in the sky. So a lot to do with what happened to me was down to autoimmune diseases. All of these are things that can be corrected when aligned. Not from taking steroids, not from taking medications, but connecting yourself with the right nutrition, exercise, sunlight, grounding, correcting your sleep cycle, avoiding as many toxins as you possibly can. About 3 years ago, one of the angels in my life, my daughter, shared her heart with me. And she said, "Mom, I don't like you when you drink." Truth is, I had got to the point where I didn't like myself when I drank either. Coming from her, it was a place from love. She wasn't saying it judging me. She was saying it holding back tears, expressing her heart, wanting to see better. Because in the eyes of a child, they have an amazing imagination and they're in tune with God. That simple one sentence woke me up from a slumber. I had been sedated for years, consistently filling myself with toxins and numbing myself, having a veil covering what reality was. Once I was able to get the alcohol out of my system, lights started turning on. Things started making more sense. And I started tapping more into God. Through the struggle with the autoimmune, it's when I started going back to God. I remember the day that I was sitting in my bed and I was reading my Bible and I was at my wit's end, and I finally made myself willing to allow him to help me. I had a miraculous healing that day. I physically felt the presence of God come into my bedroom and fully encase my body. I could feel him go to my heart. I could feel him mending and repairing and replacing my once broken heart, like the potter in the clay. I was never the same from that day on. From then on, I took God with me. This is the cool part, is that same thing as a child that rocked my world, that totally shattered what I once knew, I got to go through as an adult. This time with God, this time with faith.
Yeah.
All of those experiences had prepared me in a way. This time, I also had kids watching me. I could not fall apart. I would not allow myself to go into the rut hole I once was. As an adult, my father went through triple or quadruple bypass surgery. We got through that. That was a wonderful thing. He had better blood flow. We then found lymphoma cancer wrapped around his pulmonary artery and his lung. We all stood in faith and we believed God that this was going to go away. And our faith worked heavily. This eventually, the cancer pulled off of his lung and removed itself. When that happened, there was a hole in his lung. There was active blood flowing into his airways, filling up with blood where there should be oxygen. There was multiple surgeries done to try to save him that were all unsuccessful. At this point, he was knocked into a drug-induced coma for an unknown varied amount of time with 2% chance of survival, admitted as a test subject with no hopes in the medical field of there being a chance of survival. And through this, God made himself real to me in multiple ways. During the first trial, pain, agony, sorrow, brokenness. This time, none of that was there. God protected me and clothed me in an unbelievable amount of peace that resonated with me again, it doesn't make sense. It was God. God kept giving me visions to keep me going. I visioned my father. The vision that God gave me was a picture of him in a cocoon. And another image he gave me was him in a cloak. And the whole time I was getting these images, every single day I was showing up. I was laying hands on his body. I was speaking healing over him. I was coming with music. I was singing over his body. I was prophesying life and death to illness. But those visions, I did not know that this was going to be a 2-week long ordeal of not knowing what was going to happen with your favorite person. The cocoon signified to me that this is a moment of transformation. There is something remarkably happening in here, something that I might not be able to understand. Kind of like a caterpillar into a butterfly. And then the cloak resonated with me that this was a time of healing, that there was nothing more that we could do but to allow God's, what he made the body to do. So this time was actually a whole lot worse in scales, but it was a completely different experience walking through it with God. And today, that man is here and has been the one who orchestrated all of this. All of this was orchestrated by that very gentleman. Because guess what? Against all odds, against many things that try to, he is alive today, and he woke up, and his very first words, after not knowing he was in a 2-week-long coma and written off, very first words, "I'm not done fighting yet."
Amen.
And so I'm here to say, if any of you are not done fighting yet, this is a community for you. We did not show up here perfect. We did not show up here without blemishes. There is battles that we go through in life. Sometimes it's ugly, but if you're willing to bring God with you, you are going to love this life. With him, the burdens are light. All of that now is creating healing.
Amen.
All of that sickness now, all of that suffering now, there is God's glory on it. Because what I'm going to share with you is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and he created the earth. He created the sun. He created the moon. He breathed his breath into this. And he also rested. Clutch. You must rest. So, In Psalms 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the works of his hands. And what I want to talk to you about is the immune health. That was where I had to get. And throughout all of this, my dad and I have been on this health journey together because we shared a common denominator of inflammation. That has been the root cause of all of our issues. So this has formed a connection with each other that we can share. And hey, what was helping you? Oh, I just tried this. Like, I've had great results. What about this? Oh yeah, you've got to try this. And one of the things I brought to my dad years ago, before having the confidence in what I'm saying now, like when it was just brand new to me, is grounding. Grounding is the simplest thing you can do is taking your shoes off and go walking on the earth. You can be on sand, you can be on soil, you can be on grass. The important part is that you don't have shoes on. You want to be in full contact. Like they were speaking, we have a positive charge, and the earth has a negative charge. It gets its negative charge through thunderstorms. Lightning strikes the earth and gives it a negative charge. And this is happening all over the world. There's thunderstorms. And so it's holding that negative charge. And when your body is, I like to explain it as if you've done a radio tuning and you're like in between channels and you're picking up 3 or 4 things like, what you do? And then you, that is what my body felt like before finding grounding. Once connecting with grounding and making it a regular routine in life, everything got quiet. I could hear my own thoughts. Stress diminished. Peace entered in. And all of a sudden, my inflammation went away.
Amen.
My once things that I hid and, did all those things that we already talked about, we're going to go down. They weren't an issue anymore.
Right.
That wasn't a problem. I stand on this so firmly that I took an entire drawer, a big drawer, of all of my creams, of all of my steroids, of all of that, dumped it straight in the trash can. Good riddance. Don't want it. $500 bottle. How about this free stuff out here? Have you tried this? So grounding, what it does, it improves your sleep. It reduces stress. It boosts your mood. It aids in recovery. It strengthens your immune health. It alleviates pain. How does it do this? It improves your sleep by regulating your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm tells your body when to release melatonin to go to sleep. It tells your body when to release serotonin and dopamine for alertness and happiness. I'm going to get deeper into that with this next thing I'm connecting on. But to reduce stress, it stimulates the, I always struggle, parasympathetic nervous system, promoting sense of calm and reducing your anxiety. For the mood booster, it increases your serotonin. That's the hormone that makes us happy. Who doesn't want to be happier? Yeah. So enhanced circulation. It improves your blood flow and your cardiovascular function. When you improve your blood flow, you're putting more oxygen into every single part of your body, every part of your muscles. That is right there healing. Aiding in recovery. It's going to speed up your recovery from muscle soreness. If you're working out, if you're stressed. And it also speeds up your recovery from injury, from inflammation. And it strengthens your immune system with anti-inflammatory efforts because of the improved circulation and the immune system being supported. The alleviating pain. It reduces chronic pain.
Yeah.
Amen.
Without side effects.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yes. And again, this is just by going barefoot. Another form you can do is hands in the garden. Get your hands in the dirt. Hug a tree. Lie up against a tree. And okay, so that is my basis on grounding. I will have a lot more over there too. As we get into the winter and you're struggling with going barefoot, moccasin shoes. Get you a pair of leather shoes. Still go outside. And I'm going to wrap up on the sunshine real quick. Again, the sunshine is our friend. It has been around from the beginning. What does the sunshine give us? The sunshine allows our bodies to produce vitamin D. Every single cell in our bodies require vitamin D to function properly. Every single cell. Vitamin D supports the immune system. So if you're mixing grounding and sunlight, that's a double booster. And one of the most important and established roles of vitamin D is regulating calcium and phosphorus in the body. If you have vitamin D in your body, your bones are going to be stronger. Your teeth are going to be stronger. Your body cannot absorb calcium and phosphorus without vitamin D. They need each other to work properly. One of the things that I learned about vitamin D is your body cannot properly make vitamin D if your liver and your kidneys are not properly functioning. Because when you receive sunlight and it gets into your skin, your body uses your liver and your kidney to create the vitamin D. So it is very important to work on flushing those toxins so that the vitamin D can work properly. And let's see. Okay, so the last thing I really want to touch base on is sunlight, not just only on your skin, get it in your eyeballs.